Hi everyone, I'm Bria and welcome to my channel Tales of Tales, or TOTS as I sometimes like to call it. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about some books that I think would make great adaptations. And so as I was creating this list, I was like, I'm about to kill him with this one. I'm about to come out with all of these never heard before ideas. And turns out I've never had an original thought in my life, because most of these books on this list actually are in the works to become movies or TV shows, but I still want to cover them because maybe you haven't heard of them before, or you didn't know that they were going to become adaptations. So without further ado, let's get into the books. So the first book or set of books that I want to talk about is the Brown Sister trilogy. So this trilogy follows three sisters and we are following their love story. They are finding themselves, they are finding love, and it's about three Black women falling in love, and we love to see it. On top of that, all of these books cover an array of things. We cover depression, we cover chronic illness, we cover autism, so I think a lot of people could get a lot out of these books being adapted into movies or shows. In my mind, when I was thinking about these books being adapted, they would come out just as like their individual movies, similar to a trilogy like To All the Boys I Loved Before. And on that vein, I think this would do numbers on Netflix. Okay, I think that whoever takes this as an adaptation, if they do, I would try to keep it at the age range that it's intended for. I would hate to see it watered down, because there is some spicy scenes in there, and those spicy scenes, they just add something that needs to be in the book, right? And honestly, I was trying to think about some comparisons of movies or shows that are currently out there that this potential adaptation could target. And it's hard because there's really nothing out there like this. However, I kind of see this being for people who maybe watch like Insecure. It talks about sex, it talks about life, it talks about just real life things, but I just think that it's a great series. So Netflix, if you're watching this, the Brown Sister series. Okay, all right, so we're gonna stay in contemporary for a second, and we're gonna talk about the final revival of Opal and Nev. So this book follows a rock stars duo's rise to fame, and this book is told in a series of interviews. And as you're reading this book, every character is just so distinct, and I could just see like a lot of people who are in love with things that are set in like the 70s and the 80s, and like the music scene during that time would just absolutely adore this. Now I know that Daisy Jones and the Six is also coming out with a movie currently, and that book and this book get compared a lot. However, I really wish that this book would have came out before Daisy Jones and the Six, because in my opinion, this book is just a lot more well-rounded. The characters are a lot more fleshed out, and I think people can connect with this story more so than Daisy Jones and the Six. And it kind of sucks, because I feel like once Daisy Jones and the Six comes out, there's not going to be really space for the final revival of Opal and Nev to also make a film appearance without people continuing to make the comparison. But who knows, I feel like you could do something really cool with the final revival of Opal and Nev. I could see this being like a really good like HBO movie, or like maybe a limited series, and I would watch it. I don't know if I'm going to watch Daisy Jones and the Six, but I would definitely watch the final revival of Opal and Nev. I said that weird, Opal and Nev. Okay, so now let's get into like the fantasy sci-fi genre. So the first book I'm going to talk about, I know has already been in the talks for a movie for a while. I want to say since like 2015, and that is Red Rising by Pierce Brown. However, doing my research, I did find out that The film rights originally belonged to Universal. However, so much time has passed that Pierce has taken the film rights back, and he's thinking about making this into a show instead. And I definitely agree with this series becoming a show instead of like movies, only because there's a lot of like intricacies in this story, and I think it's really important for us to get to know the characters. But for those of you who aren't familiar with Red Rising, the book follows this young man why I can't talk today. It follows this young man named Darrow, and Darrow, he is part of this class system, okay? And the class system is done by colors, and reds are at the very bottom of the class. They are drillers and they are manual workers, and once Darrow's wife dies, it kind of spurs him into this like revolution of like, why is our society set up this way? And you know, he goes on his hero's journey to try and essentially have a coup with the government, right? But he does this by trying to impersonate one of the other classes, which is essentially, they're called golds, and the golds are at the top. Darrow does all of this to try to become a gold. And this book is technically classified as like adult sci-fi, and so me reading up until the point of the series that I've read, it is a bit dark. Okay, so I don't see this doing well on like a Netflix or like an Amazon if we're gonna make it a show. I definitely see it more on HBO. I see this being shot similar to Game of Thrones, how everything is just kind of really rugged, really like actually shot dark, not just dark themes, but shot kind of dark. So I'm excited to eventually see this come on a screen somewhere. I've been twiddling my thumb since 2015, and it's 2022. All right, up next is a book that I really thought was an original thought, and I was wrong. And that is Ring Shout by P. Djeli Clark. So I read this book last year, and as I was reading it, I was probably only in like 2 chapters, and I was instantly like, wow, this actually reads like a movie. This book is fairly short, but each chapter in my mind is written like a scene of a movie, and the descriptions are very visual in this book. So you can just like see some of the action scenes and the fighting scenes, and to me, it's just like a no-brainer of this becoming a movie. So Ring Shout is about this group of characters who are tasked to go fight these demons. But these aren't your normal, everyday demons. Well, technically they probably are your everyday demons. So the demons are essentially formed by clan members who have let hate like fester up into their heart, and they end up becoming these like literal demons. And so, you know, we have you know, ancestors coming in to assist in the fight at some point. There's magic swords, and you know, there's a lot going on in such a short book, but in my brain I could see the entire thing. So there's 2 thoughts that go along with this book, right? I could see this really being success, but I could also see this getting a lot of backlash. In our current climate, I feel like a lot of people have an issue with us talking about history, even though it's true. And a lot of people are realizing that America's history, we know it's bad, right? But I think as a lot of people are starting to educate themselves, they realize just how bad it is. And you know, this book kind of talks about that a bit, and where the hate towards marginalized groups really come from, and where it stems from, and how it's impacted people not only in the past, but how it still has ramifications now in the present, and how it probably still will in the future. You know, some people have problems with that, even though it's the truth. However, they can suck it, because this book has already been optioned for a movie, and they have already started casting for this. And so someone who's already been cast is Kiki Lane, and so I'll put a picture of her here. And so I'm super excited. Okay, so all the books I've mentioned up to this point are books that I really have enjoyed and just really want to see on the screen. But this next book I'm going to talk about is a book that I actually didn't enjoy reading that much, but I think I would definitely get more out of it if it was a show. and that is Jade City by Fonda Lee. And I'm already gonna tell you guys right now, do not come for me for not really loving this book. I ended up giving it a 3 out of 5 stars, which is not bad by any means, but I was just kind of overwhelmed. The pacing was really slow. There was a lot of political intrigue, which I liked, and there was also a lot of family drama that I also enjoyed. However, it just moved way too slow for me, and I think if I saw it on the screen, I think I would have enjoyed it a little bit more. And so it's always hard for me to describe this book, so I'm just gonna read the back synopsis for you. And it just says, for centuries, honorable greenbone warriors have used magical jade to enhance their abilities and defend the island of Kokon from forward invasion. Now the war is over and a new generation vies for control of Kokon's bustling capital city. 4 siblings of the powerful Call family must prepare for battle, and the fragile peace between the clans is about to break. So, you know, it sounds really interesting, and I know a lot of people did enjoy this book. Like I said, it just moved really slow for me, and so I'd rather just watch it with my eyeballs. And good for me, I will be able to watch it with my eyeballs on Peacock, because it's been picked up to become a series on Peacock, and I'm really grateful for it, because there was no way that I was gonna read another like 500, 600 page book, especially considering there's 2 more books in the series, and I was just like, I'm not doing it. So Peacock came through for me, and I'll be able to watch that eventually on my television. Okay, and so the last like sci-fi fantasy book, and another book that I didn't particularly love reading, but I loved the concept, was Wilder Girls by Rory Power. So this book follows a group of girls, and they are like on like an island or at a school or something like that, and they are quarantined because they are infected with some type of like virus or infection, and the infection causes them to like have these body mutations. So for example, one girl gets gills, if I'm remembering correctly, and one gets like really bad warts or like something like that. Like, it's all really weird things that happen to their body because of this infection, and we're just following them, trying to figure out like how long they're going to be there, how this happened to them, can they get off of this like little secluded area that they are in, and just uncovering all these secrets. And so while I think this would make a great adaptation, I don't think it's ever going to be made into an adaptation, only because there are already shows out there that are very similar to this. So for example, The Wilds and Yellow Jackets both follow a group of girls that are stranded on like an island, or they're like lost somewhere, and they kind of have to survive through it. And so those 2 shows I love. I'm still getting through Yellow Jackets right now, and they're both different enough for me to enjoy both. And so while I don't think this book would be completely counted out for a movie adaptation, I just think that if it was adapted at all, it would, whoever adapts it would just have to do something a little different. All right, so I have 3 books left that I want to talk about. The first one I'm going to talk about is Miracle Creek by Angie Kim. This is like a legal courtroom thriller, and it also has a lot of like friend and family drama interwoven into it. And so this just says, a literary courtroom thriller about an immigrant family and a young single mother accused of killing her autistic son. Miracle Creek is a powerhouse debut about how far we'll go to protect our families and our deepest secrets. So in this book, we get different perspectives from each person who was at the scene of this incident, where I want to say it was 1 child died and 1 adult died, and a lot of people were injured. And they're going through this courtroom process where people are on the stand and testifying, because there is some inklings of foul play, that this incident didn't happen on accident, that it was done on purpose. So they're trying to find out who has motive, and in the process of that, we realize a lot of people have secrets, and you know, you're trying to figure out, along with, you know, everybody else, who did this and why would they do this. But I think this would make a great adaptation. 1, because I think that there's always an interest for like courtroom dramas. Like take SVU, take Law and Order SVU, for example. People love that show, and I know recently I watched Inventing Anna, and I had a little bit of like courtroom-ish things in there, and I just think that's something that a lot of people actually enjoy watching. I don't see this being like a big blockbuster movie, but I could see this being like a Hulu original, you know. But I have 2 more books to talk about. Push by Ashley Aldrain, and I can't remember what production company it's been picked up in, but it is in early development. And The Push follows this mother who is not sure if she's ever meant to be a mom or if she wants to be a mom, and some of those questioning thoughts are a little bit confirmed when she has her first kid, and her first kid essentially turns out to be a psychopath. Like, her kid is a little violent, and nobody really sees this violence other than her mom. So she starts to get a little gaslit around by the people that are around her, because they're like, she's a child. No way she has all this ill intent that you think she does. But things change a little bit once she has her second child. And if things didn't already sound crazy enough, they get crazier when the second child arrives. Oh, like I always say, nothing's creepier than a creepy child. And while this isn't gonna be for everyone, I think it's gonna be for a lot of people. And it's gonna be something that a lot of people end up talking about. And people have already talked about the book a lot. It was on a lot of people's favorite books of 2021. And so I think if this was done in a movie, which it is, I think it's gonna get a lot of buzz if it's done correctly. All right, and then the last book that we have is actually a non-fiction book, and that is American Predator by Maureen Callahan. So I was kind of iffy about putting this on the list because it is true crime, and I know there's kind of been a downtrend, I think, in true crime being on television, and I think that's for good reason. I think a lot of serial killers were getting really like glamorized and Hollywoodized, and you know, people are forgetting that there are actual victims in these true crime cases. However, I think I'd like to see this one adapted into like some type of show. And when I say adapted, I don't mean like it being dramatized and there's actors. I mean us actually following this as like a true crime show or a true crime documentary. And that's because American Predator, it follows one of the lesser known serial killers because he doesn't have a set MO. So this serial killer travels across state lines. He doesn't really have a set type of person that he kidnaps and kills. So there's some confusion and speculation around how many people he did actually kill. I think in this book they attribute, I think maybe 10 murders to him, but because he crossed so many state lines and all these things, it could be a lot more than that. But I think I'd like to see it in a documentary of some sort, just so that we can maybe get the word out a little bit more, and so maybe some other cold cases can get opened up and people can maybe get some answers for murders that have never been solved. Okay, so that wraps up my list of books that I think would be great adaptions. And you know, as I was going through this list, I was thinking, Bria, you shouldn't be down on yourself because you've never had an original thought. You should be happy because clearly you have an eye for books that should be adapted, because all of these are in early stages of being adapted essentially. And maybe I found a new job career. Who knows? Who knows? But if you've made it to the end of this video, you know the deal. You are my absolute favorite, my little tater tot, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.